कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है. This year, I had my heart broken. She was a silver-haired, beautiful woman with soft, crackly skin, hooded eyelids, a smile that could melt anything, and a habit of breaking out in Shakespeare at the most delightfully inappropriate of times. It was May 4th, 2016, when my grandmother passed away. And I'm convinced that Mama had planned it all for herself, decided when she was going to part the veil and cross over into the next world. You see, May 4th this year was the night of Miraj. Miraj is one of the holiest nights in the Muslim calendar, when the Prophet's own soul ascended into heaven. She was buried on Mother's Day, which actually happened to be the day after Lucy Kibaki's funeral. And I remember coming home steeped in sorrow and looking at the newspaper, and the headline read, "Mama's Final Journey." She would have loved that. You know, I used to think that death was like flipping a switch. Quick, decisive, immediate, clean. But I'm not so sure anymore. I watched Mama dying for a long time, preparing for her death for a long time. She was ready to go. And when all was said and done with her life as she knew it, and she was left simply waiting for death to visit, what remained in the space between? Here's what I noticed. Stuff gets stripped away. Slowly, like an onion, layers of us peeling away, bit by bit, until all that's left is the very core of who we are. And with Mama, the first thing to get stripped away was her sense of propriety. She simply stopped caring what anybody thought and indulged fully in her curiosity. We'd have long, meandering conversations that went from the profound, Aleya, they can take away whatever's in your hands, but they can never take away what's in your mind, to the not so profound. Woman chops off man's genitals, she said, reading the newspaper. Aleya, what does this word mean, genitals? To the simply delightful. Aleya, your bosom is wonderful, like mangoes. Not like mine, she looked down wistfully. Mine used to be good. Your sisters are like apples, but they're still good. Shame as a concept simply ceased to exist in her mind. It was as if she reached deep into her pocket, pulled out all the "what will people think of me's," and flung them far, far away. Now, this came to her quite late in life, but it did make me think. Once you stop caring so much what people think, what would you say? What would you do? The next thing that went was her care for things, material things. She had 4 dresses and 4 sweaters which she wore in rotation. Nothing else interested her. All her beautiful saris were stuffed into a suitcase and shoved under the bed, only for us to discover after she'd passed away. And I remember thinking how little of her was left remaining in the world. Everything that she owned could fit into one box. One box. And I remember unfolding her cherished red silk bandhani sari, the one that she wore when my father married my mother. And it struck me. And it's really obvious, but sometimes we forget. Collect memories, not things. Because when you're alone, when you're dying, when everybody else is going around their daily lives, all that you have left to keep you company are your memories. And if indeed that is true, then what are the memories you're collecting? The next thing to go was her mind. And this was a woman for whom her mind was her most cherished asset. A woman who, when she was a young girl in the 1930s, had won Best Essay in the whole country for a piece entitled An Accident Witnessed by Me. She would remind me regularly. A woman for whom being a teacher was so wound up into her identity, this idea of acquiring and sharing knowledge. A woman for whom she had relied on her brilliant mind to claw her way out of poverty. A young girl with 5 sisters and a widowed mother in the 40s. And then her mind started betraying her. It happened slowly and then became more regular. I remember one time we'd taken her to the hospital for a checkup, and she lay in the hospital bed, eyes transfixed at the scene in front of her, insisting that the curtains shouldn't be closed. The shop is getting robbed, and she was stuck in the middle of it, experiencing it for hours, pleading with me, "Get us out, Aleya, get us out! What's wrong with you? Why can't you get us out?" Her arthritic hands clutched either side of the hospital bed, and she pushed with all her might. She begged, "Get me out, get us out." She pleaded, she cajoled, she threatened. And when nothing else worked, she heckled. Let me tell you guys something. A woman with 93 years worth of heckling experience is not to be messed with. So I summoned all my strength and I pretended. And I pushed those bars and I grunted and I heaved and I sighed. And I tried to convince her. It didn't work. She looked at me and she said, "What's wrong with you, Aleya? Have some courage. You're the one crying. I'm the one trapped in this nightmare." Reality is such a slippery thing. All these things that we know to be true. I mean, we know. Our opinions, the way we hold on to the way we look at the world, the way all this time that we spend fighting for our right to be right. What would happen if we just accepted that perhaps my reality is not the only reality? Maybe not reality at all. The next thing to go was her body. And in the final days, she lay in the hospital bed, her faculties slowly giving up one by one, her body racked with pain, struggling to hold on or let go. I'm not sure. Really fighting to breathe. And in that time, the only thing that gave her solace was poetry. Because medicine can soothe the body, but only art can soothe its spirit. And when I felt like this was it, I sat by her bedside and I held her hand and I read her poetry, Rumi. When I die, when my coffin is being taken out, you must never think I am missing this world. Don't shed any tears. Don't lament or feel sorry. I'm not falling into a monster's abyss. When you leave me in the grave, don't say goodbye. Remember, a grave is only a curtain for the paradise behind. You'll only see me descending into a grave. Now watch me rise. How can there be an end when the sun sets or the moon goes down? It looks like the end. It seems like a sunset, but in reality it is a dawn. When the grave locks you up, that is when your soul is freed. And then her soul slipped away. It was a little bit after midnight, and we lay huddled around her still warm body, peeling back the memories, comforting each other with nostalgia, laughing in between tears, imagining her hovering above us, touching her soft, crackly skin. Finally, the nurse came in with the death certificate, and in the field for profession, she had written, housewife. And even though my grandmother was not yet in her grave, I could feel her rolling around in it. Oh, she would have been furious. Being a teacher was so tied up into who she was as a person. But when it was all said and done, it didn't matter. None of it really mattered. Don't look at me with all those sad eyes. This is not depressing. It's actually enormously exciting. Because imagine, if none of it really matters, then why the hell wouldn't I stand here in front of you, 300 people in my grandmother's sari, and bare my soul? If none of it really mattered, then why won't I write that audacious, mad feast of a musical, even though I have no idea where to start? If none of it really matters, then why hold on to everything so tight? You know, there's that saying, live today like it's your last day. No, don't do that. Don't live today like it's your last day. It puts way too much pressure on something so fragile as life. Live like you're immortal. Live like none of it matters. Live as if it was already all said and done. Because then, what would you do?